played at WSOP this year wasn't a tournament at all. We headed over to the King's Casino cash area where they play all games 5-10 and above, and we got ourselves on a 10-25 game and bought in for $5,000. Let's get to the hands. Almost immediately, we pick up ace-queen offsuit in the low jack. Sorry, this was my first time filming live poker, so I definitely need to work on my camera angles. Anyway, I raised to $125 over the $50 straddle. In this game, I am going to elect to use a 2.5x raise size. The straddle comes along and we are heads up. The flop comes ace 7-6 with 2 hearts. The straddle checks it over to us. We bet $100 and he folds for our very first pot at this 10-25 game. In this hand, we defend queen 9 offsuit to a $125 raise from late position in the straddle. The flop comes queen 8-6 rainbow, and we check it over to the initial raiser. He elects to check back. The turn is the 9 of hearts, bringing in a backdoor flush draw possibility. We lead out for $200. We chose to lead out here because we want to start building a pot, and our opponent could have checked back some very strong hands on this flop because of fear of being check raised so often on a board texture like this. Our opponent makes the call. The river comes the 2 of diamonds, and now we're going to be looking for value from one pair hands that might be curious to call us, given that there are so many misdraws on this board that we can represent. We bet $400, and our opponent unfortunately snap folds. This next hand, we defend king 8 suited in the $50 straddle to a min raise of $100, and we go 3 ways. The flop comes queen 5-2 with 1 diamond, not much going for us here. If there's any bet, we will fold. Fortunately, it checks around and we see a turn. The turn comes the 3 of diamonds, giving us a backdoor flush draw. We will not be betting it at this time, as I don't think we can get really much of anything to fold, so we check this one over. The original raiser now bets $150. The button caller folds, and we're going to go ahead and put in the call with king high and a flush draw. We see the 9 of diamonds on the river. We've rivered the king high flush. We check it over and our opponent puts in a block size bet of $150. We're going to go ahead and put in the raise here. We're going to raise pretty small to about $500, hoping to get a crying call from something like top pair, an overpair, 8s, 9s, that kind of hand. However, when we raise here, we are pretty heavily weighted towards value. It's hard to have a lot of bluffs in this spot. I would have to look down at the ace 5-0 with maybe the ace of diamonds and make a play like this, which doesn't make a ton of sense, so our opponent pretty quickly sniffs it out and snap folds. This next one's a bit of a doozy. There is a button open and I squeeze the queen 7 of spades and the small blind, which is a very low frequency, if not 0% play, but I was wanting to give a little bit of action. So button makes it 125 and we go ahead and make it 500 in the small blind. The button makes the call. We see the flop of jack 10-3 with 2 spades. We're going to go ahead and exercise some pot control and check this flop over to our opponent. It's relatively range neutral, however I think our opponent does have a slight advantage here, as he can have every one of the sets and we really can't have 3s. We can have some jack 10, we can have a lot of top pair, over pairs, but we certainly wouldn't be betting very large, if at all, with those hands, so we are going to make the same decision here. The turn is the 8 of spades, and we are going to go ahead and play this one just a little tricky and check it over to our opponent for a second time. Just as we were hoping, our opponent fires out a bet, and as I was reaching for calling chips, I dropped like half of my stack. That was pretty embarrassing, but we go ahead and make just the call for $350 because we have our opponent's range pretty dead here. So we're happy to just continue to lay the trap and go for a big check raise on the river. When the river comes the brick 6 of hearts, we stick to our plan, check it over to our opponent for a third time, and hope that our trap has worked and that he fires out a bet. And that is exactly what he does. He fires out a bet of $900. We announce that we are all in. It takes the dealer a moment to realize what we said, but we shove. Our all-in amount is for about $4,000, and our opponent makes a very quick fold. So we get to drag this $6,895 pot. At this point in the session, we are up about $2,500. At each dealer change, this table was playing a PLO high-only single board bomb pot. $100 a person, so we start this hand already $800 in the middle. Unfortunately, I didn't capture this hand, so I hope you enjoy these videos of our dogs instead as I voice it over. Sorry. We peel 6-4 deuce deuce badoogie or rainbow on the button, which if you play any PLO at all is not a good hand. However, the flop comes Jack 8 deuce with 2 hearts, giving us bottom set 8 ways. When it checks all the way around to us, deuces are not supposed to be an incredibly strong hand in PLO here 8 ways. However, I believe that anyone who had a set of jacks or 8s would have bet ahead of us, and there are any number of gutters and flush draws that we need to charge or potentially even get out of this hand. So we bet the pot. The player in the small blind and the player in the cutoff both make just the call, and we're off to a turn. And it's a beautiful one, the 3 of diamonds. This turn shouldn't have helped our opponents out at all, and when it checks to us again, I think our hand wants to bet the absolute maximum to try to fold out some of the weaker draws that could still get there and to charge the absolute max from flush draws. So we bet the pot again. And both players call. So now this pot has ballooned to $12,800 and we still have a river card to fade. Can we hold with bottom set? I'm just hoping for a non-straight completing, non-heart river, and lo and behold, the deuce of clubs peels off. Or quads. Quads is a good river too. I was about 5K effective with these guys to start the hand, so I'm all in for about $900 into $12,800. I feel like if they had a pair to go with their wraps and their flush draws, that they have to pay this size. And apparently the small blind agrees because he, pays, and the cutoff fold. We show him quads, he flashes us a jack, and then we drag this $13,600 pot. The last hand we're going to go through for the evening, I defend Jack 9 offsuit in the second straddle, the $50 straddle, to a $125 open 3 ways. We just go ahead and flop the nuts. The flop comes Queen 10-8 badoogie. So we have the best possible hand. The initial raiser checks, and the button who flatted the initial raise puts out a bet of $150. And I put in the raise to $400. Initial raiser folds and button makes the call. It may seem counterproductive to raise when you've flopped this nutted of a hand, but when it is specifically a straight, you get to raise because you unblock all of these sets, 2-pair and 1-pair combos that they could continue with. We see the deuce of spades turn, bringing in some backdoor flush draw possibilities, but otherwise a total brick. So we go ahead and bet $800. Our opponent makes a very quick call and we're off to a river. The river comes the ace of spades, which is a really interesting one. He can certainly have hands like king queen of spades, king jack of spades, jack 10 of spades, queen jack of spades, none of which we block. We are of course losing to any king jack now, but I think it's a little difficult for him to have king jack on this river unless it's specifically king jack of spades or king jack with the king of spades with intentions of bluffing a spade river. But this river also means that our opponent rivers some more two-pair combinations, and I'm not repping any ace-x hands, so he could be under the impression that his ace-x two-pair hand is good. For all of these reasons, I choose a very bizarre, just under 40% size of $800. I consider this to be something of a block bet. I'm giving my opponent a pretty good price here. He only has to be right 1 out of every 3 times for this to be a profitable call. Looks like he agrees because he flicks in the chip. We show down our hand, we have the winner, and we get to drag this pot to end the session. So that was our 1025 session at King's Casino, the very first thing we played at WSOP. That was about 5 days ago, so we've had a lot of play every day since then. I am very behind on making that content, but I'm gonna have it for you all soon, I promise. In that session, we were in for 5K and out for $13,904. So that was a pretty sweet way to kick off WSOP. We ended up playing that game 2 nights later where there were lots of bounties, stand-up game, all that really fun stuff. So stay tuned as I show you some of that action, as well as the 3K6 max, the 800, and any number of other events I've played in the last 5 days. Today, which is Wednesday, I will be playing the 1600 at the Wynn, so come say hey if you're around and throughout WSOP. If you're liking this content, please comment, like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Helps me stay motivated to keep making content, and I'll see you guys at the tables. Thanks.